Welcome back. You watching The Fix. I'm Karima Brown. It's been a busy week for us on the political and current affairs front. So it's time to look at what made the big front pages of our major Sunday newspapers. And joining us this week is the editor of the City Press, Mr. Mondli Makhanya. Mondli, good morning. Welcome to the program.
Good morning unto thee.
It's lovely to have you. I said to Peter, we changed the program especially for you. We changed the time to accommodate you.
Yeah, so that it does not clash with any Orlando Pirates or Tottenham Hotspur.
Yeah, there we go. There we go. Yeah.
Peter,
So, Mondli, listen, I have to just raise something about your front page. Don't know whether anybody can see this. Where are we looking at camera 3, right? City Press, this lead is Sex Tape Rocks NPA. And is this a new story? Because I think you mentioned it to me a long time ago. I mean, he might have only just heard about it.
The funny thing is, Peter and Mondli, is when the decision had to be taken to appoint an interim person, the president was between a rock and a hard place. And that literally was coming from the presidency because all four candidates were compromised one way or the other. But I had heard about Mr. Ramaite's, first of all, drunken drive charge that disappeared. And then I heard about the sex antics. And I actually spoke with people in the ruling party and alerted them to this and said, are you comfortable with this man? So tell us more about the story. You know, why is it only coming out now? Because it's been around for a long time. Do you think it's being leveraged?
Yeah, see, what's happening now is that a decision is about to be taken to appoint a permanent person. And the permanent person is likely to come from the outside. It's not going to be somebody inside. So what's happening now is that in the wars within the NPA, that different factions are wanting the current acting person to take certain decisions that will bind the person who will be coming in to carry out, so that there are positions and certain things certain restructurings that need to take place. So what he's being put in a position to now is to take decisions that will bind the coming person. This is why now, apparently, it is a form of blackmail. Now, the activity that took place within the office is now being used to blackmail him at this particular point.
I remember there was a famous case in England of the deputy governor of the Bank of England having sex on the floor of the office of the governor with the governor's secretary. And nothing ever happened to this guy until the FT reported that he had had a meeting with the governor's secretary of the governor's office. And within hours of that story coming out, he'd resigned.
What is interesting for me here is the fact that the NPA seems to be one of the last vestiges where the president hasn't really been able to move yet. And it would be interesting to explore what the reasons for that is. If you look at the provincial heads, for example, I mean, it's not like they're shining examples because the structure wasn't just hollowed up at the top, it was also provincially. I mean, someone like Mwiponi Noko can't possibly be considered, you know, for a post like this. Someone was telling me, Peter, in the NPA, if they should pull the leave form of Mr. Ramaite. He used to demand to go home every Friday because he's from Limpopo. And I don't think he's ever put in for a day's leave to kind of go off. So he was never an ideal candidate. But this leaves us in a predicament because the entire NPA is in fact suffering a severe crisis. I mean, there are good people. We know that Pikoli is out because he is now the advisor to the Minister for State Security. Glynis Breitenbach is in the DA. She's a good prosecutor. Garinal is with AfriForum running private prosecutions. Where's the president going to have to look?
No, look, I think that there is not going to be any recycling. The candidate is not going to be somebody from inside. And I were led to believe that the people who, the panel that the president has put together to select the new person is definitely not looking inside the NPA. They are going to be looking outside of the NPA. Yeah. It's going to be a respected person who comes from the...
And presumably the deputies, some of the deputies are also at risk, I would have thought. I mean, they bring...
Look, I mean, like, that will then be up to the person who comes in. That person then has to build a new leadership. I just want to say, I mean, like, you say it's the one area where that the president has not really acted on. I think it is one of the first areas where we actually acted. I think the fact that Sean Abrams is not there, the fact that he has acted on the two people who had come back as a result of of certain decisions. I think that it is actually receiving very urgent attention, and the fact that the president has said, has now put himself in a position where I'm not going to exercise my prerogative, my executive prerogative, that it's going to be a transparent process. So I think that, it's very important. It is going to be the single most important decision of 18 months of
well, certainly certainly post pre-election, it's going to be the most important decision. Both yourself, you've used it inside, but you've flagged it up on your front page. Mondli, Gigaba fights back. The Sunday Times front page headline, which people can have a look at, is also the same words, Gigaba fights back. He's obviously got a little help calling up some reporters, telling his story, but it's too late, isn't it?
Yeah, I would say so. He had quite an exciting week. It began on a certain note. But I think that in as much as we can say that it's a little too late, there was a lot of speculation in the past week that the president would fire him, that he should resign, and so on. But I don't think that the president can actually do that. You can't fire him on the basis of what is in the public domain at that particular point. Okay, he played with himself. The president can't exactly fire somebody for playing with himself.
I see the Sunday Sun has also got in on the playing with himself, but that wasn't the only issue.
Exactly.
The public protector has actually found him to have lied. The Constitutional Court, he lost his bid. So it's more than salacious detail about his private life.
That's where I was going. I was saying that, there's that part. And then there's the part around Fireblade, which is the airport entry point that the Oppenheimers have. Do you, in this climate, fire somebody who is seen to be fighting with the Oppenheimers? I think that the president will be put in a rock and a hard place there. In as much as there are court rulings, in as much as there's a public protector finding. But the issue is that, Gigaba and the people around him have been very clever about this, about positioning it as him fighting against the Oppenheimers, who many people...
White monopoly capital.
Capital, basically. It's archetypal long before the Ruperts became the face of white monopoly capital. So whatever findings there are, I think it's going to be a very hard decision for President Ramaphosa to take. And he's not going to resign himself.
But we know he's not going to resign himself. If the BLF has already rocked up on his behalf like they do with Duduzane, you can pretty much see on the scale of factionalism where Malusi Gigaba has positioned himself and how he's positioning this matter. The key question, though, Mondli, is can President Ramaphosa afford not to fire Gigaba in a situation where people want people to be held accountable? Because not a single minister so far has been held accountable. There's been accusations, but we haven't had a member of the executive actually having to face the music.
The question is, can the president afford to fire Gigaba, given the brittle state of his power within the ANC at this particular point? You saw, in the NEC yesterday, that they pulled back on the investigation into the plot. And there he had a sitting duck. There was his Secretary General had met, and people within his leadership had met with President Zuma to undermine him, and he couldn't do anything about that. So, and I think there are much easier sitting targets for him to fire other than Malusi Gigaba. I think Batabile Dlamini, for instance, would be a first person to go for.
Yeah.
And there would be a Mondli Makhanya, for instance, who actually. There is a direct thing there with Mondli Makhanya. So I think politically, yes, he cannot fire Gigaba. But I think that, if he had to act in terms of ethics, in terms of the broader state, in terms of his mission of cleaning up, yes.
He doesn't become a political liability.
Exactly.
All right, guys, we have to leave it there. Time is run out. I happen to disagree with both of you. I think he can fire Malusi Gigaba because his constituency is not the African National Congress, it's the entire country. Well, that's your fix for the week. Take care. We'll see you again next week.